Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over my Crystallize Geometry Nodes add-on. This add-on is now available on Gumroad and Superhive. So I've been working on this add-on for quite some time because I wanted to give you guys full customization over your crystals, and I'm going to go over how to set this up from scratch if you've just downloaded the file and exactly what you need to do to set this up. Right now, we're working within our template file, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this object and hide it, and I'm going to show you how to add a new object to your scene and apply the modifier. It's quite simple. I'm going to go ahead and Shift A here. I'm just going to type in a sphere, and I'll add a UV sphere to my scene, and then all I have to do is go to my modifiers tab here on the right, click on Add Modifier, find Geometry Nodes, and then I have to simply click on this drop down and click on Crystallize V1. And just like that, your object turns into crystals. Now we're going to go into how you can actually customize your look and what all of the different settings do to get your look for the crystal that you want for your object. So I'm going to go ahead and click off of overlays here so we can really see this in real time. And you'll see on the right hand side, we have a ton of awesome settings. I'm going to go over each one of them individually so you can understand what they do. The very first one is our random seed, and as you click through here, you can see that you can actually change the randomness of your setup. So once you start to have more crystals, you can change this for the setup that you think looks best for your scene. Then we have our master density slider. This is going to determine how many crystals are laid on top of your object. Right now we're at about 500. I'll drop this down to 100 to kind of show you the difference, but I prefer 500 because I like my crystals to be dense and close next to each other. Next, we have our crystal scale, and this is the global scale of all of your crystals. So if you want your crystals to be very big, you can scale that in, and if you want them to be a little bit smaller, you can decrease that. Next up, we have crystal growth. Crystal growth is how long the crystals are, how far they grow out from the center. Right now, we're set to a default of 5. You can see if I shorten those, right, we kind of just have the point of the crystal, but if I increase these, right, you can see that now we have some intense crystal growth, and you can get more of those elongated quartz crystals depending on the look that you're going for. All right, next up we have our base mesh. Now the base mesh is exactly what you'd think. Whatever object you added, you can add back that base mesh right in there. So I'll go ahead and click that so you guys can see, and then I'll decrease the crystal scale so you can see. So now we have our sphere in the middle, right? We can actually tell our sphere exactly what we want it to be in terms of the material. So I can click on my base material right here. I can change this over to amethyst if I want, or ruby, depending on the look that I'm going for. I might even try mica just to see what that looks like. That doesn't look terrible, but I will switch it back to amethyst right now because we're going to add some more crystals on top of this. Now you'll see that there's different slots over here. We have big crystals, medium crystals, and small crystals. Each one of these are different sets of crystals that you can apply a different shape to and a different material to. In this case, our big crystals, and I'll zoom in here so you can see it, our big crystals are set to the shape type quartz. And I'm going to go through the other shape types with you right now. We have quartz. We have classic, which is a variation of quartz. We have hex, which I'll go ahead and scale these up so you can look at this. Hex is going to be that hexagonal crystal shape, if that's what you're going for. And then we have a few more. We have cubic, and then quartz is what the original one that we had. Now, you're probably thinking these look quite uniform, but we can change that up as well. Each section of crystals, big, medium, small, and tiny, they all have their own adjusters, right? So not only can you change the shape, you can also change the type, right? Now we're on mica right now, okay? And then we can also change the density. So if we want our big crystals to be less dense, we can do that here. We can also change the rotation of them as well. I'll set that to something like 500. Now you can see we have a variety of rotational types here. Now you'll notice that the world is pink right now. I am going to switch this to actually go to one of my HDRIs so that we can see a better environment texture here. This looks a lot better. Now you'll notice that the shapes come in more. So your lighting is going to play into this very heavily. So make sure you guys have the correct lighting setup for your scene specifically. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click on my crystal again, and I will adjust the density down a little bit. I think that looks pretty cool. And then for the base mesh, I want to try white quartz and see how that turns out. That looks pretty cool. I like the way this looks. Now let's add some medium crystals onto that. You can see we can also adjust the scale of the crystals themselves and the offset. So if they're too close to the center, or you want them to be almost inside of your crystal, you can actually adjust the offset like this. Maybe you want them to sit right above the outside of your crystal. That's fine too. All right, now let's turn on our medium crystals here. Now you can see we have a whole new set of crystals that we can customize. So I have quartz set up right now, and I can make that amethyst or white quartz, really whatever I want, depending on the look I'm going for. I can, of course, scale those down. I can increase or decrease the density depending on what I'm going for. And then you know what? I want to add one more layer on top of this. I'm going to add my small crystals as well. And now you can see that I have a completely customized look where I can adjust the shape, the material, the density, and the rotational values for each individual cluster. And this is starting to look really, really good. And of course, if you want to quickly check out what another thing might look like, you can turn off your big crystals, and now you're left with something like this. And it just looks absolutely gorgeous and stunning. And these materials are all presets that I've developed over time that I just think are some of the best crystal shapes and materials that you can utilize in this instance. Now, I do want to show you guys that you can also adjust your shape on the fly, and the crystals will update with that shape. Let me show you what I mean. Let me hide this shape, give this a quick save. I'll add in a cube, and I'll go ahead and add my geometry nodes crystal modifier to that. Okay, and you can see that everything looks uniform. Again, you can adjust the rotation right here. Okay, and I want to show you guys that it's very easy to modify your shape. So I'm going to turn my overlays back on. I'm going to tab into edit mode with this cube, and I'm just going to extrude this face, scale it down a little bit, and you can see how everything adapts, right? See, I can extrude these edges. Everything will adapt to whatever shape you choose, right? So you can see that you can easily adjust these things. And this could be very useful for creating your own custom shapes or your own custom environment made of crystals. Maybe you want to have a crystal cave or something like that. This can easily be used for that exact purpose. All right, now I'm going to show you guys how to actually draw a curve for your crystals. And this is pretty cool. So let's go ahead and delete everything. Let's add a new curve in. I'll just add in a Bezier curve, nothing crazy here. And then I'm actually going to go to my modifiers, and I'm going to add my geometry nodes modifier. And you won't see anything right away because we need an actual mesh to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my data properties. I'll go over to my geometry settings, and you can either adjust this extrusion right here to start getting your crystals, or you can adjust the round bevel. In my case, I'm going to use the round bevel because now we can start to draw our crystals. And again, depending on the depth that you choose, you'll get a different result. And just so you know, this is what's happening behind the scenes. You're just drawing a curve and you're giving it a profile. But once you turn your geometry nodes on, now it becomes a curve that you can draw with. So all I have to do is when I have my curve selected, I tab into edit mode here, and then I'm going to press T to make sure this panel appears on the left. I'll click on the draw tool, and now I can actually draw my own crystals. So if I want to draw something fun like this, I can do that. Maybe I want to draw another shape. I can draw, and now my crystals will appear wherever I draw. And it's all procedural, right? So I can go in here and I can now adjust any part of this that I want. Maybe I want this anchor point to go over here, scale it out a little bit, rotate it, right? All of this is procedural. And I can go back and adjust all of my settings just like before. Maybe I don't want the crystals to be that long. I can adjust that right here. And now we have crystals that look like this. And of course, you have all of your other layers of crystals as well, and they look absolutely gorgeous. And that is how you draw curves and turn them into crystals with this add-on. Now, don't forget, you can also import your own 3D models and apply the same modifier to those models. One of the things that I like to do before I apply the modifier is I typically like to take a look at the topology and make sure that it looks okay. In this case, it's a little jagged and it doesn't look great. And so with this 3D logo, I'm going to scale it down, and then I'm just going to go ahead and add a remesh modifier on that with smooth selected. Make sure that remove disconnected is not selected. I'll go ahead and make sure this is a decent value. That looks pretty good. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And since this doesn't have too many vertices or faces, it's looking pretty good. I always will apply the scale too. If you're using your own model, I suggest applying the scale, or Blender could crash because of the size of the object. Now I'm going to add in my geometry nodes modifier, and just like that, we have crystals that make up our object. Let's go to our top-down view, and let's take a look at some of our settings here. Look at that. Now we have our object that's made of crystals, and it's also a logo. So if you have a logo that you really like, that you'd like to turn into crystals, you can easily do that with this Geometry Nodes add-on. And it just looks gorgeous. And again, you can adjust the scale, right? So let's say it was a little overpowering, like maybe it was a little overpowering before. You can adjust that scale, and then you can also adjust the clarity right here. So if your crystals are not where you like them, you can adjust your clarity to 0. Now they're a lot more transparent, right? You can kind of see through them a little bit more. And then if you're like me, maybe you like a little bit of a higher roughness, so I'll set that back to 3, which is essentially the surface roughness of these crystals. Another thing I can do is go in and add my medium crystals in here, and I can adjust the scale of those. And I can also adjust the type that they are right now. I'm going to adjust the seed a little bit to get some variation here. I'm going to go ahead and scale those crystals up a little bit more. There we go. Now we can really start seeing those crystals. And I think I'll enable the base mesh, and I'll try something like mica to see how that looks. Now mica is quite shiny, so depending on the angle of light, you may get a different result. So I think I will try white quartz. This looks really nice. And again, you can adjust the scale, the rotation, everything, the density. This is looking awesome. So if you're looking to spice up your logo or create another variation of your logo, that is how you can do that. And again, you can mess with all of the different materials that are available to you and the crystal shapes, of course. Now, there is one more application for this that I want to show you guys, because a lot of you are going to want to create your own landscapes or maybe a cave or something like that. So I'm going to add in a plane and just create a quick landscape here. So I have a plane, and I'm going to go into solid mode here, tab into edit mode, subdivide it quite a few times, and you guys probably know where I'm going with this. We're going to be adding a displacement modifier to this. So let's go ahead and add a deform displace modifier. I'll add a new displacement, and then I'll go over here to my textures tab. And I'm just going to choose something like clouds, something simple like that. I'm going to subdivide it one more time. And then I'm going to go back over here into my modifiers. I'll add a subdivision modifier. And then I'll just decrease the strength just a little bit here. That looks good. Now, I'm just going to give this a quick save. And then I'm going to add my geometry nodes add-on on top of all these modifiers. Let's see what this looks like. So far, so good. Make sure you apply your scale if you haven't already. Awesome. And then look, we can adjust the density here, and now we have a custom crystal field. I'm going to go ahead and decrease this a little bit, and I'm also going to increase our overall density to 2000. Okay, and I'm going to adjust my rotation to get some more randomness here, and enable my medium crystals as well. Now we're going to go ahead and turn into solid mode here, and look at this little landscape of crystals that we've created. Now, what's really cool about the growth scale right here on the right is you can actually make your crystals appear to be growing. So look, if I go back to frame 1, and I'll go to solid mode for this, and I'll just knock my growth down to something small like that. I'll start it here. I'll hover over this and press I, and then I'll go over here to the 60th frame. I'll raise that value up like that, and I'll press I again. And now if we play this back, it looks like our crystals are growing, which is awesome. And you can also, of course, keyframe any of these other values. But of course, if we go to rendered view, right, it's going to look like our crystals are growing. That's super awesome. It just looks really, really good. And I think I'll also switch our secondary crystals to white quartz. I just think it looks really nice with the amethyst, and it gives it more variation. Just absolutely beautiful. And of course, guys, you can go back to your displacement and you can adjust your strength. So if your displacement wasn't enough, now you have a higher displacement, right? And this is what it's going to end up looking like. And if you think it's not enough variation, you can adjust your rotation as you see fit. And then let's just say maybe you had a camera angle right here. You could have this really nice depth of field set up. And I'll show you how I'll just do that really quick, because this will be really fun. So we'll go ahead and grab our camera. I'll set it up right about here. Go ahead and make sure we are rotated down like this. All right, now we're in our camera view. I'm just going to switch this to 1920 by 1080, and I'll show you how I can get this really nice macro effect. I'll zoom in here. I'll go to my rendered view, and then I'll enable my depth of field, and I'll go back to solid view and make sure that in my overlays, depth of field is enabled. And now I can adjust where my depth of field sits. And then I think I'll do like a depth of field of maybe 2 or 3. Let's try 3. We don't want it to be too intense because we want to be able to retain some of that value. But now look, I can focus in on just these crystals here, and everything else will be blurred out. And how cool is that? We have this nice macro effect. And then maybe you want to have some mica in the background. Let's just go ahead and add that, make a quick scene here. I'm trying to show you guys how easy it is, right? I'll just duplicate that. How easy it is to construct scenes with these crystals and modify them. So right here, again, guys, we have our setup. I'm going to go in here and I'm actually going to remove the modifier, add it back so we have a new version of it. And in this case, instead of quartz, I'm going to choose cubic. And I'm just going to raise the scale really large and make sure it's set up to mica. And now let's go ahead and take a look. Now we have this mica background. And if we zoom in here, look, we have this entire sort of cave system that we've built. And if you really want it to look like a cave, you can decrease the strength right here of your displacement, duplicate this, and just flip the entire thing. We'll do, I don't know, RY 90, oops, RY 180. There we go. Go ahead and raise this up. And now you have this cave system, right, where you can look in between here. If we bring our light down, maybe over here, rotate a little bit, see what that looks like. Very cool. See, now we have this incredible system of elements that we can construct, and we can control the density, the scale, every single aspect of this that we want to create the desired look. Again, this might not be the exact look that you're going for, but this is how quickly we can adjust things with our Geometry Nodes add-on and easily apply this to any object. And of course, we can go in here and we can edit all of these procedurally. Now, just a few tips and tricks. Again, I'll just go over this one more time. If we're adding an object, if you do have the object scaled up very large or very small, make sure that you go to Object, Apply, Scale before you add your Geometry Nodes add-on, right? Because I'm going to go ahead and add it right now. You are going to be more likely to crash Blender if you do not apply the scale first. So that's my first tip and trick. Also, what I would do is I would try to pick something that has a relatively low mesh count, or well, vertice and face count, because that can tend to overwhelm Blender. And again, we're instancing onto these faces. That's sort of like the basis of the Geometry Node setup. So the more faces that you have, the more likely it is that Blender may not be able to handle it depending on your system setup, right? And I will include on the Gumroad and Superhive pages the setup that I prefer and the one that I have. But you guys got to make sure that your setup can handle this, and there are going to be some minimum system requirements, okay? All right, so again, we can go in here, we can adjust anything that we want, and just make sure that if you do add a subdivide modifier, you do that before your geometry node setup, because if you try to do it after, it's going to try to subdivide every single crystal, and you're going to get a completely different result, right? And another thing, if you find that your model is not detailed enough and you're losing some of the detail to the crystals, I would suggest scaling them down and instead focusing on the crystal growth itself. Because now you can see, we can still tell that this is Suzanne the monkey, but we still have crystals instanced everywhere, right? And it looks really good. And we can add in pretty much anything we want after that to customize our look.